Hello, everyone, and welcome to this cooperative extension. Okay, as a form of um, introduction, the course is going to be discussing cooperative extension in its, at least in its basic level for you to understand. But the objective we have in mind, the objective we have for these units we'll be covering today is that at the end of today's session, every student should be able to define the concept, extension service. Every student should be able to illustrate the activities of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources and their functions as it concerns the Department of Cooperative in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Every student should be able to explain the importance of extension services in Nigeria. Every student should be able to describe the roles of extension services and some policy implications of those roles, as well as explain the current private extension services that are in existence and discuss the legal base, scope, function, and objectives of extension services. That's quite a lot, but if you follow me step by step, as well as read the course materials that is attached to this course, you find out that you'll be able to cope accordingly. All right, let us go straight to what we're going to be talking about today. Now, discussing, defining the concept of extension service. What do we really mean by the concept of extension service? Extension is a process or a service way of getting knowledge developed from one environment to the other environment. How do we define extension service? Like I said, extension is a process or a service way of getting knowledge developed from one environment to the other. Extension is an out of school education that happens anywhere and can serve and anywhere can serve as classroom. What do we mean by that? For example, the farmer's farm can be a classroom, the village square can be a classroom, the village hall can be a classroom, the market center can be a classroom, the kitchen, sitting room, and anywhere can just be a classroom. So it's just an out of school education that happens anywhere. Now, extension services are services employed in the diffusion of new innovation to people who live in the remote area of a community. In some discipline, they don't refer to this kind of education as extension. Some call it outreaches, all right? So now, still on the definition of extension, people who have limited access to certain kind of information need in some areas of specialization, for example, like agriculture, like in cooperative, like in building, like in healthcare, like in domestic work and other areas of human activities are the ones that require extension services. It is a system or service which provides rural people an opportunity to have access to improved teaching, which under normal circumstances they would not have been able to avail themselves of in their locality. Now, extension services have no closing time or opening time. So it is informal in nature and it brings about a desirable change in the rural people. Okay. Now, how does extension function? Now, just if you look at my slide, you see that we have a diagram here that explains the function of extension. In the first circle here, you can see research institution. In the middle, you see extension service, and at the extreme, you see the rural people. Okay, now you can see the arrow at the top, which describes information flow from the research institute to the extension system and through the extension system to the rural people. And you can see the arrow below, which shows or signifies information flow from the rural people to the extension system and from the extension system back to the research system. What does that really just tell us? It tells us that the research system or the research institute comes up with information that is important for the rural people, either for their family life, agriculture, their cooperative, and whatever area of specialization they require it in. And that information, rather than go from the originating research center or research system straight to the rural people, it goes through an extension system. All right. The extension system is a program that takes that learning, that new information, that innovation to the people. And the extension system also conveys the questions, the information from the people back to the research institute or where the specialized learning is delivered or gotten from. That is how extension functions. So extension, like we said earlier, is an out-of-school education that anywhere can serve as a classroom. All right. So extension is an education process. So it's not just an act, it's an education process. Education is a process of bringing about desirable change in human behavior. This desirable change can be in any of the forms below. For example, we can say desirable change in skill. That is, you teach people how to spray, the use of a knapsack spray and spraying of herbicides in their crops. That teaching brings about desirable change in skill. We are teaching them a skill. Number two area of desirable change is desirable change in knowledge. So education brings about knowledge of maybe how fertilizers work, how herbicides work, how animal breeding works, how to prepare a nutritious food for your child, as the case may be. The third area of desirable change is desirable change in attitude. So education can bring a change in attitude. What is your attitude towards dressing? What is your attitude towards certain kinds of people? What is your attitude towards crop storage, and so on and so forth? Okay. Now, what are the activities of Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources as it concerns cooperative departments? Now, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources serve as the foundation of the Department of Cooperative. So as I was saying, the activities of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture as concerning the Department of Cooperative, we said that the foundation of the Department of Cooperative is embedded in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources. All right. It's also notable that the foundations of cooperative extension services were laid in the historical development of the agricultural extension services. So the history of agricultural extension services started in 1893. That was when the first research institute started in Nigeria. There was a Department of Agriculture for the Northern and the Southern Protectorate at that time, which was mostly concerned with the development of major crops that are good in the north and carry out research mostly on soil and type of crops suitable for a particular soil in the south. Okay, now what is the objective of the Central Department of Agriculture at that time? One, experimental production of export crops. At that time, they went into serious experimentation of export crops like cotton, groundnut, rubber, palm oil, and so on. Also, there was also improvement in maintenance of soil fertility. Another objective was efficiency in marketing of agricultural produce. Then they also have another objective referred to as establishment of rudimental extension services and advisory services. Now, it's worthy of note that the establishment of the regional ministries of agriculture was the beginning of the recognition of agricultural extension practices in Nigeria. Each regional ministry of agriculture had a research station, a school of agriculture, and a field service division. The extension personnel trained were deployed to teach farmers innovative farming techniques at that time. Okay. Now, what are the functions of cooperative department in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources? Now, some of those functions are coordination of intergovernmental cooperative activities. So you see, the cooperative department was basically coordinating. That was their function, one of their function, coordination of intergovernmental cooperative activities across national formulation of broad natural economic policies for cooperative development and financing the integration of cooperative policies into national development plan. Another function was cooperative education and training at all levels. So they were into training not only for cooperatives, but for those that were going to deal with cooperatives. The fourth is inter-Africa and other international cooperative matters, which include our relationship with international cooperative organization and so on and so forth. Number five was relations with global central labor organization and similar bodies, especially in matters relating to jointly sponsored welfare schemes. Number six function was coordination of research into cooperative problems. Number seven was coordination of interstate cooperative activities. Number eight was to regulate the activities of national cooperative bodies and societies. While number nine was the compilation of information on all matters relating to cooperatives and preparation of reports on cooperative development in Nigeria. Now we move to the contribution of extension services. Extension services contributes to economic growth. Note that extension simply means taking information from where it's domiciled to where it is needed. So if information is moved from where it is domiciled to where it is needed, it simply means that that information is supposed to improve that place where it is moved to, either to increase their productivity or save them from harmful practices. So that information is supposed to bring a kind of improvement. So the first contribution of extension service, as we can see here, is increase or contributes to economic growth. The second is it contributes educational services to the people, because by it they get a form of enlightenment. Number three, it brings about rural development. Number four, leadership training is acquired by the rural people through extension education and training. Number five, some youth activities are started and encouraged through extension services. Number six, it enhances the transfer of knowledge from government research centers, stations, universities, and other areas or to the rural people. Number seven, it brings about updates in farming technologies and access to inputs for farmers. Okay. Now, let's highlight some of the roles of extension and its policy implication. In addition to the contribution of extension, agricultural and rural development in increasing food and agricultural production, other factors must be addressed by policymakers. Okay, as we're saying, what are the roles of extension and its policy implication. Now, we describe that in addition to the contribution of extension, agricultural and rural development in increasing food and agricultural production, other factors must be addressed by policymakers and support service agencies in formulating and implementing agricultural and rural development policies. These issues include population and environmental concerns, and they have very strong implications for how key support services such as research and extension should be organized and financed. Now, we have some current private extension services in Nigeria, and let's highlight some of them. The United African Community, the UAC, has some private extension services they are giving. We have John Holt, who has some private extension services, the British American Tobacco, and the Diocese of Agricultural Development Program of the Catholic Diocese of Ijebu-Ode, and others. Okay, now there's a concept called the Sustainable Agricultural and Rural Development, SARD. That concept, what does it really mean? It simply means the integration of food, population, and environmental nexus. All right, environmental issues, the integration of these two things. Now, this has led to a new platform of development referred to by the FAO, that's the Food and Agriculture Organization, as Sustainable Agricultural and Rural Development. So when the international body decides to integrate the food, population, and environmental issues together, they came up with a new concept called the Sustainable Agricultural and Rural Development Program. Now, this program refers to the management and conservation of the natural resources and the orientation of technological and institutional change to ensure the attainment and continued satisfaction of human needs for present and future generations. So you see, they're trying to plan ahead. So that planning ahead just simply means we need to manage and conserve natural resources and try to push our technological and institutional changes to ensure that we attain a continued satisfaction of human needs for present and future generations. Now, what are the legal base of extension services in Nigeria? Nigeria has the most elaborate extension system in sub-Saharan Africa. Unfortunately, the country has not enacted any law on agricultural extension. However, in Nigeria, the Nigeria Agricultural Research System comprises of commodity-based research institutes, a specialized extension institute, faculties of agriculture in conventional universities, University of Agriculture, several colleges of agriculture, and polytechnics. Now, in the country, these centers of agriculture are just the legal basis we have for extension. Now, countries like the US, Japan, South Korea, Thailand, Zimbabwe have departments of agricultural extension established by law, while our own extension is embedded in the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, what is the area of coverage for extension services? We can otherwise say, what is the scope of extension services? Now, the first is that the scope of extension services are listed. 1, crop farming. Extension services covers crop farming, which is the process of telling the farmer how to till the soil and how to plant. Another aspect it covers is homemaking food technology. That is, it covers the preparation of food and how to take care of the home. Another aspect extension service covers is cooperatives, which is a better way of getting loan from the federal government, banks, and organizing their members through thrift and savings mobilization to better the members' socioeconomic situation. Another aspect that extension covers is leadership and youth farmers. Young Farmers Club can be established. They help them, extension can help them to go and tell youth or facilitate the youth being informed on how to farm, encouraging them to go to farm. They also help in disseminating messages to the rural population, or they serve as supplement to extension workers, extension workers take a lot of information to the youth in the rural areas. Now, functions of extension services. One, teaching improved practices to farmers, for example, teaching them how to cultivate, how to process their produces. Number two, marketing basic information on rural economic farming system and non-farming system. And then number five function of extension services is planning, organizing, and executing rural development scheme. We have number six. Number six is organizing youth farmers club. While number seven function of extension service is operating demonstration farms, those farms where new seedlings are planted, and then you use that to teach farmers that these new seedlings experiment in collaboration with research institute. Number eight is assessing the ability to use credit facilities. And while number nine is organizing home economic program for rural women. Number 10 is teaching crop production methods and preservation of crop. At this point, we'll talk about objectives of extension service. Extension services seek to achieve certain objectives. What are they? Number one, extension education. That is, they hope to achieve the dissemination of elements and useful information on agriculture and home economics to farmers and cooperatives and health services, depending on which information you are taking to the rural populace. Another objective is the practical application of knowledge, because the knowledge in itself can't do anything until it is practically implemented. Number three is assisting the farmers to use the technical knowledge to solve their problems. Number four is dissemination of research findings. Number five, rural cooperative services. So their objective number five is to help the rural persons through their rural cooperative services. Number six is provision of information, general information. Number seven is helping the farmers to help themselves. That is, help them develop their farms, help them with their finances, help them with the seedlings they need, help them with marketing of their product, and so on. Okay. Now, at this point, I want to thank you for being in this class. We'll ask you to take some of these in-course assignments on your own. Try to define the term extension in your own words. All right. Then define the concept extension services. It's also very important that you list and explain the contributions of extension services to rural development. From your course material, you will see a lot of them here and there. And then, what does the acronym SAROD stand for? Don't worry, when you go through this lecture material, the lecture videos you will see, you'll be able to get that from this video. Today, I look forward to seeing you in my next class. Thank you. We'll be attending to some other units on that particular day. Thank you very much. See you in my next class.
If you have learned from these videos, click the notification button. Please give it a thumbs up so that others can see it or will see it. Always remember to subscribe if you have not done so. Until next time, keep learning.